For 50 years, there was one asset the entire world agreed was untouchable. One thing that stood outside every trade war, every tariff, every political fight between nations. And that was gold. Gold was the neutral ground, the referee, the one form of money that no border tax had ever dared to touch. That just ended. A letter dated the 31st of July, sent quietly from United States Customs, has reclassified the exact gold bars that the global financial system uses to settle its largest trades, opening the door to something that has essentially never happened in the modern era: a tariff, a tax on imported gold itself. And the moment that news broke, gold did not fall in fear. It soared. I am here to explain to you why the world's ultimate safe haven, suddenly becoming a target, sent its price surging instead of sinking. What it means for the metal you may be holding right now, and why this single obscure customs letter may be one of the most important events in gold in your lifetime. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand something almost nobody watching the price today has grasped. And here is the twist, the part I am giving you right at the start, because everything depends on it. When you put a tariff on something, you make it more expensive to bring across the border. And when the thing you are taxing is already scarce and the whole world needs it, that tax does not just add a cost. It can fracture the price itself, splitting the world into two, a higher price inside the wall and a lower price outside it. That is what the market suddenly realized today. If the United States taxes imported gold bars, then gold inside America could become worth meaningfully more than gold everywhere else, because it would be harder and costlier to bring new metal in to meet demand. The safe haven did not become less valuable today. For anyone already holding physical gold inside the wall, it may have quietly become more valuable. And that realization is what sent the price surging. This is not a story about gold being under attack. It is a story about gold already in the right place, becoming suddenly, structurally harder to replace. But before I go further, I want to know who is in the room with me right now. Tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and tell me honestly what you are holding. Physical gold or silver you could touch, gold through a fund or an account, cash. Tell me, because this story lands very differently, depending on which of those you own. And the mix of your answers will tell its own tale. And I promise you, I will come back to what it means before we are done. Let us start with what actually happened, plainly, because the detail matters, and it is genuinely strange. According to a report in the Financial Times, the United States Customs and Border Protection issued a letter, dated the 31st of July, asking that 1 kilogram and 100-ounce gold bars be placed under a customs classification that would allow them to be subject to tariffs. Now, that sounds like dry, bureaucratic language, the kind of thing you would scroll right past. But stop, because those two specific sizes are not random. The 1 kilogram bar and the 100-ounce bar are the workhorses of the entire global gold system. They are the bars that settle contracts on the world's largest gold exchanges. They are the physical metal that stands behind an enormous share of the paper gold traded every single day. By targeting those exact bars, this letter reaches directly into the plumbing of the global gold market. The pipes through which physical metal actually flows between nations. This is not a tax on jewelry or trinkets. It is a potential tax on the lifeblood of the gold trade itself. And it did not arrive alone. It landed on the same day that a broad wave of new tariffs from the Trump administration officially took effect, part of an escalating global trade fight. And on the very same day that a deeply disappointing jobs report hit the market, showing far fewer jobs created than expected and sharp downward revisions to previous months. So picture the collision. On one day, you have the safe haven itself pulled into the trade war, a weak economy suddenly signaling the Federal Reserve may have to cut rates rather than raise them, and a world already on edge. It was a perfect storm, and gold surged through the middle of it. To understand why gold rose rather than fell, you have to understand the machine underneath it. and specifically the difference between the two things people casually call gold. If you are finding this useful already, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, because this next distinction is the one that separates the people who truly understand what happened today from the millions who only saw a number move on a screen. There are two kinds of gold. The first is physical gold, real metal, a bar or a coin, sitting in a vault or a safe. The second is paper gold, a contract, a claim, a promise that somewhere gold exists on your behalf. Now, the paper gold market is many times larger than the physical metal that actually backs it. In calm times, this works because only a small fraction of paper holders ever ask for real metal. But a tariff on physical bars threatens that entire arrangement because it suddenly makes the real metal harder and more expensive to move to where it is needed to honor those paper promises. And when the market senses that physical metal is about to become scarce and costly inside the wall, everyone who holds a paper claim suddenly wants to be sure real metal is there to back it. That scramble, that rush to secure physical gold before the wall goes up, is a huge part of what drove the price higher today. The tariff did not make gold less desirable. It made physical gold in the right location suddenly more precious than the paper that represents it. We have actually seen a preview of this exact fracture already this year, and it is worth knowing because it proves this is not theory. Earlier in the year, when the United States moved to tax certain gold bars coming from Switzerland, the country that refines most of the world's gold, something remarkable happened. The price of gold inside the United States briefly separated from the price in the rest of the world. For a period, an ounce of gold in New York was worth noticeably more than the same ounce in London, purely because of the friction of getting metal across the border. The single global price of gold, something we all take for granted, cracked into two. Today's customs letter threatens to widen that crack into a canyon. And the lesson of that earlier episode is simple and powerful. When you tax the movement of gold, the metal already inside the wall becomes worth more than the metal outside it. Location suddenly matters in a way it never did before. Let me make this real with two people, because these forces only matter when you see how they land in a life. Neither is real, but both are the kind of person you might recognize. The first I will call Edmund, 70, a careful man who did what felt like the smart, modern thing. He wanted exposure to gold, so he bought it the easy way, through a fund, a paper claim, a number on his brokerage statement that rises and falls with the gold price. Edmund feels he owns gold, and in a sense he does. But what he actually holds is a promise, one whose value depends entirely on the smooth, frictionless global movement of physical metal that has always simply worked in the background. Edmund has never once asked what happens to his paper claim. If that frictionless movement suddenly seizes up, if walls go up between nations and physical metal can no longer flow freely to honor the promises written against it. Today, for the first time, that question stopped being hypothetical. The second person, I will call Cora, 67. And she is not richer than Edmund and not more sophisticated. She simply made a different choice years ago. She bought physical gold, real coins, and small bars, and took them into her own possession. When she heard today that the United States was moving to tariff imported gold bars, she understood something immediately that Edmund did not. Her gold was already here, already inside the wall, already in her hands, beyond the reach of any border tax, any customs letter, any trade war. While Edmund's paper claim depends on a global system that just developed a dangerous crack, Cora's metal simply sits there, exactly where it has always been, quietly becoming more valuable precisely because new metal just became harder to bring in. The difference between them is not the amount of gold. It is that one of them owns a promise that depends on open borders, and the other owns the thing itself, already home. Now, why did so many people for so long end up like Edmund without ever thinking about it? The answer is a subtle but powerful feature of how the human mind handles risk, and understanding it is genuinely useful Psychologists have long observed that people are extraordinarily poor at pricing risks they have never personally experienced. If something has always worked smoothly in the background for our entire lives, the mind files it under permanent and stops considering that it could ever break. The free, frictionless global flow of gold was exactly such a thing. For 50 years, it simply worked. So every investor who bought paper gold quietly assumed it would keep working forever and never priced the risk that borders could close around the metal. This blindness to risks we have never lived through is why the most dangerous shocks are almost always the ones nobody was watching for. The ones that had never happened before and therefore felt impossible. Today, a risk that felt impossible, a tariff on gold itself, became real. And the people who had never imagined it are the ones scrambling. Now, let me be honest and careful with you, because I will not insult you with fear. And this subject draws people who want to frighten you into buying something. The details of this tariff are still emerging, and it is entirely possible the policy is narrowed, delayed, or clarified in ways that soften its impact, because the method of taxation via customs has not been fully spelled out yet. It is possible the price fracture proves temporary, as such things sometimes do once markets adjust and metal reroutes. Gold has had a genuinely difficult year, overall down from its January record. And today's surge does not erase that. Anyone who tells you this guarantees gold is about to explode to some specific number is guessing and dressing. The guess is knowledge, and they deserve your suspicion. What I am giving you is not a prediction. It is an understanding of the mechanism, so that whatever comes next, you can read it clearly instead of reacting to headlines in a panic. Let me give you something practical. Then a way to watch this as it unfolds. The single most important thing to track now is the gap between the price of gold inside the United States and the price in London or the rest of the world. If that gap widens and holds, it means the fracture is real and physical metal inside the wall is genuinely repricing higher. Watch, too, for reports of physical premiums, the extra cost of buying real coins and bars over the paper price. Because if those premiums climb, it is the clearest sign that real metal is becoming scarce and sought after. Do not just watch the headline gold price. Watch the gaps, the fractures, the premiums, because that is where this particular story will actually be written. Now that you know to watch them, you are reading this event at a level almost nobody else is. And here is silver's place in this, because it matters, and it is often forgotten. Silver, too, moves in physical and paper form, and its paper market is even more stretched relative to its available metal than gold's. If tariffs and trade friction begin fracturing the gold market, silver is exposed to the very same forces. And because silver is both a monetary metal and an industrial one, consumed physically in vast quantities by solar panels, electronics, and modern manufacturing, a disruption in the free flow of metal hits it from two directions at once. Silver is the more volatile cousin, capable of larger swings in both directions. And in a world where borders are hardening around physical metal, the question of whether you hold the real thing or merely a paper claim on it applies to silver with even greater force. It is not simply a cheaper gold. It is its own animal, and it lives on the same fault line that just cracked today. And to grasp just how disruptive this could be, you have to understand a strange fact about how gold physically moves around the world, because it reveals why this tariff hits so hard. The United States does not refine most of its own gold into those specific bars. A huge share of the world's gold is refined in just a handful of places, above all Switzerland, which processes the majority of the globe's gold, and increasingly refineries in Asia. The bars that America imports to feed its market largely come from across the ocean. So a tariff on imported 1 kilogram and 100-ounce bars does not hit some minor trickle of metal. It hits the main artery through which physical gold actually reaches American vaults. And because the world cannot simply build new refineries overnight, and because most silver and gold refining capacity sits outside the United States, There is no quick way to route around the wall. This is why the market reacted so violently. It was not pricing a small new cost. It was pricing the sudden possibility that the primary pipeline of physical gold into the largest financial market on earth could be choked, and that the metal already inside would become far harder to replace than anyone had assumed just a day earlier. When the pipe narrows and the metal inside becomes irreplaceable, the price of what is already inside does exactly one thing. It climbs. And here is the piece that puts all of this in its proper place. The piece I most want you to carry away. While ordinary investors react in confusion to each day's headlines, the largest and most sophisticated buyers on the planet, the central banks of entire nations, have been quietly accumulating physical gold for years, at a pace not seen in generations. And crucially, they have increasingly been bringing that gold home into their own national vaults, rather than leaving it stored abroad. Think about why. These institutions, with more information than any of us, have been preparing for exactly the kind of world that arrived today. A world where physical metal inside your own walls is worth more than a promise of metal held somewhere beyond your reach. They saw the fractures coming. Today's tariff letter is a loud confirmation of the quiet logic that has been driving their enormous patient accumulation all along. When you wonder what to make of today, look at what the most informed money in the world has already been doing for years, and ask what they understood that the rest of us are only now discovering. There is a deeper current under all of this too, and it is worth naming. For 80 years, the world has been built on the free flow of goods and money across open borders, an era of globalization that an entire generation simply took for granted. What we are watching now, tariff by tariff, wall by wall, is that era being deliberately interrupted, and gold, the oldest money on earth, behaves in a very particular way when the world starts fragmenting. It comes home. It becomes local. It rewards those who hold it directly in their own possession, and it punishes those who hold only a paper claim on metal trapped on the wrong side of a rising wall. Today's customs letter is not just a tax. It is a signal that the age of frictionless gold is ending, and that in the world now taking shape, the location and the form of the metal you own may matter as much as the amount. So let us pull it all together and go back to that quiet letter dated the 31st of July. The United States has moved to tariff the exact gold bars that settle the world's largest trades, and rather than sink gold in fear, it sent the price surging because a tax on physical metal makes the metal already inside the wall harder to replace, and therefore more valuable. We saw a preview of this fracture earlier in the year with Swiss gold, when the American price briefly split from the world price. It landed alongside a wave of new tariffs and a weak jobs report, a perfect storm. And the deepest lesson is the difference between paper gold, a promise that depends on open borders and physical gold, the real thing already home and beyond the reach of any wall. Meanwhile, the central banks of the world have been quietly bringing their own gold home for years, preparing for precisely this. So here is what I want you to carry away, framed as plainly as I know how. Today may be the moment the world learned that even gold, the ultimate neutral asset, is no longer immune to the age of walls and tariffs, now rising around us. And the great lesson of it is not to panic, but to understand that in this new world, the form and location of what you own matters more than it has in living memory. If you hold gold as protection against exactly this kind of fragmentation and uncertainty, then a day like today does not weaken your reason. It powerfully confirms it, and it raises a question you may never have asked, which is whether the gold you own is the real thing in your possession or a paper promise dependent on a global system that just cracked. This does not mean you should panic or make a rushed move, because stability and balance matter, especially in retirement. It means you should finally understand the difference and decide with clear eyes which kind of gold belongs in your own plan. The right answer depends entirely on your own circumstances, and I am not here to tell you what it is, only to make sure you are finally asking the question that today forced into the open. Do not let anyone use this event to stampede you into a rushed purchase or a costly product, because they will try and they will grow louder. And equally, do not dismiss it as distant news that has nothing to do with you, because if you own gold in any form, today changed something about the ground beneath it. Those are different errors, and the truth sits calmly between them. None of this is financial advice, and every fact I have cited, the customs letter, the targeted bar sizes, the earlier Swiss fracture, the jobs report, the central bank buying, is in the pinned comments, so you can verify every word of it yourself rather than take mine. I opened by telling you that for 50 years, gold was the one asset no trade war ever dared to touch, and that a quiet letter just ended that era. Now you understand why taxing gold sent its price soaring instead of sinking, and why, in a world of rising walls, the metal already in your possession may be worth more than the promise of metal trapped on the far side of one. So let me leave you with the question underneath all of it. When the walls go up around the movement of gold, do you want to be the person holding a promise that depends on open borders, or the person holding the real thing, already home? The answer costs nothing to consider today, and it may be worth a great deal to have understood before the next wall rises. Because if there is one thing the long history of money teaches, again and again, it is that the people who prepared for the world that was coming, rather than the world that was comfortable, are the ones who came through the great shifts with their wealth intact. Today, a little more of that coming world just came into view.